Hi, I'm Vyythee. So for today's episode, we have Reuben here. So we're going to start off by asking him briefly about himself. So where are you from, educational, and also your working background?
Well, originally, as a person, I'm from Klang,
All right.
represent, all right.
Okay.
Um, Educationally, I studied in Australia. I was in ECU.
All right.
So I did my first degree I did double major in mass communications and journalism. And because I didn't want to come back,
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to my dad. I was like, "Can I study some more?" And my parents were very happy. Oh my god, my son wants to study. So like, okay, I did my master's in advertising. I came back, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I mean, I had a brief inclination of like, okay, let's become a foreign correspondent. And like I said, from Klang, all the media jobs were in KL.
All
And I
right.
was a spoiled child. And so my mom was like, no, I'm not going to give you my car. I was like, oh, like, then I'll get a job within Klang itself. So I started working in Northport. But eventually I moved out and I started working in an agency. I started my career at Ogilvy and moved to Leo Burnett. And then I went to corporate for a while. I was heading the PR department in
All
Pantai
right.
Hospital, which you all should know, all
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, I
Otherwise, I
know.
didn't do my job. And now I am with Team Lewis. I've been there for 6.5 years already. I'm an associate director.
Right. That's great. That's great. Anyways, what made you interested in pursuing public relation?
The idea was to get into something science based, but I just wasn't very interested, particularly because I hated chemistry, right? But eventually I decided, okay, let's think about something else. And I liked English a lot because I was good at English. I liked reading, I liked writing. But when I went to my mom and I was like, okay, I don't want to do medicine or anything like that, I want to do journalism, she laughed in my face, and
All
she
right.
was like, journalism is not a career, it's a hobby. So at that point in time, it was a very rebellious. I don't know what came over me, and I was like, you know what, that's exactly what I want to do. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It was just a very like in the moment, like decision made out of anger, right? But when I got into it, I was like, okay, this is so much fun. Like being a journalist, especially investigative journalism, is a lot of fun. You cover a lot of court
Yeah.
cases and whatnot, and that's what I did. So getting to PR from there was a whole other ball game, I would say. Like, so when I came back to Malaysia, I wanted to look for a job. Was difficult to get into the media because it was so far. I decided, okay, fine, let's get into corporate com or PR, and that's what I did. I started my career in Northport, moved to Westport, and then the agency. It's a lot of dealing with people, and I am a people person.
Yep.
I think that's what sort of pushed me, it steered me. Like I said, I did my master's in advertising, but advertising is very behind the scenes. You don't really talk so much to people. You're supposed to understand human behavior, but the
Mm.
actual direct connection, talking to them, is not really as prominent or prevalent as it is in PR.
What does PR mean to you?
It's a thankless job, let me tell you that, all right? Number one. But I think what PR means to me is it's a way, it means to make money, number one, and meet really amazing people, number two. I've met so many wonderful people, from fellow PR practitioners to members of the media who have been friends with me from the start of my career, like 16 years ago till now, and like these people have been there. I go for holidays with them, and I think that's what it means. It's a way to meet and connect with people, and I think, as I said, as a people person, that is very important to me, right? In a nutshell, that's what it means: connection with people.
Could you share with us your insights about the current state of the PR industry in Malaysia?
Actually, the PR industry now is seeing another resurgence. Like, I think before the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
we saw a lot of like PR was really dwindling. Like all standalone PR agencies had to pivot, had to become marketing agencies. While we are all maintaining that stance right now,
Mm-hmm.
the PR arm of things, it's actually very, very strong right now. Awareness, crisis comms, it is, I think, like I said, it's seeing a resurgence, and a lot of big companies are also finally once again seeing the value of having agencies on board rather than just doing everything digital or advertising. PR is actually seen as a main component of their marketing strategy.
Right, right. So, based on your working experience, we noticed that you've worked in various industries. So, we would like to know the differences working in different industry in terms of work culture from a PR perspective.
You break it down to two things. Number one, you either work in corporate or you work in an agency. I've done both, and each one has its own pros and cons. Like, to be a bit more superficial, all right? If you work in corporate, you got to dress up with a tie and your long sleeve
Yeah.
shirts and pants.
Yep.
Agencies, not so much. All right, you
Right,
get
right,
to wear
right.
your jeans with your t-shirts. You dress up for your events or client meetings and whatnot. There's also the lifestyle difference when you work in an agency and we work in corporate. In corporate, it's generally a bit more serious, I would say, in my opinion, my experience. Agencies are a little bit more chill. Chill in terms of the culture, not in terms of how hard you work or anything like that, right?
Uh-huh.
Agencies are not for everyone because some people like to have the 9 to 5. Agencies, sometimes you do have to work a little longer. Not always, things are changing rapidly. I think fundamentally that's what the main difference is. The culture between corporate and agency is completely different.
It's great information. So,
All join agencies because you learn the most there.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The pay, you don't get bonuses, right? But in corporate, you do.
That was a great answer. So we're moving on to the next question. Based on your experience, what is the differences between digital marketing and PR, and how do they correlate with each other?
Okay, you know what? You're a student, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you that question. What do you think the difference is?
I feel like marketing is more towards the social media side, and PR is more towards the people side, where you really talk to people, but digital marketing is engaging towards social media.
Yes, for the most part, you're right. So, with digital marketing, it is more towards picking a target audience and focusing on conversion. With PR, it is more about getting brand awareness out there, changing perceptions. Almost like it can't work without the other. All right, you need to work like PR practitioners and your digital marketing specialists, they need to work hand in hand to make sure whatever campaign you want is successful. So PR goes in first and tells the story. The narrators, right? They say this is what's happening, and then the digital marketers will come in and be like, okay, we've already identified the people that we want. Awareness is there. Let's get them converted.
Are there any future projects that are in the works for you right now?
Well, I wish I could tell you a bit. I work in an agency, so we've signed a lot of NDAs and whatnot. So I can't share about specifically what projects I'm working on, but I can tell you a little bit about where my career is headed. For the past 15, 16 years, I've been doing PR, internal comms, corporate comm. You all know that ESG is a big thing now, right? CSR has also always been a really big thing, and I've sort of shaped my career to move, or steered my career to move towards charity work. So
Right.
within my company, Team Lewis, we have Team Lewis Foundation, and I'm the APAC lead for the foundation. So what we do is we look at helping charities out there. Like, there's a lot I can talk to you about this, Lara, because it's my new passion at work. That's where I'm headed. I'm looking at more sustainability stuff. I'm looking at more charity things. And I think for a lot of people out there, for a lot of PR people out there as well, you'll need to know that careers don't have to move only in one direction. It's almost like being a doctor, right? So you go in as a houseman, become a medical officer, and a lot of people think, you know what, I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon because you watch Grey's Anatomy and it looks really cool, you know.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, once they get into it, I have this one saying that I really, really love. You don't choose your passions choose you. You know, for example, like, you may come from a family where everybody loves basketball, but you just don't. You might be the one that likes ping pong. And you really can't help what you like. It's the same thing once you get into the comms industry, comms or marketing industry, right? You go in there thinking, okay, like, a lot of people, like, I'm going to get into advertising because it's really cool. You meet a lot of cool people, do a lot of fun stuff. Once
Yeah.
you get into it, you're like, oh God, it's so boring. And then you realize that your actual interest is in something else completely different. My colleagues, for example, they come in wanting to do social media. And then once they're in, they're like, oh my God, Reuben, I don't want to do this. Like, what the events side of thing is so much more fun. It calls out to me. And then that's what they move towards. So the marketing and comms industry, right, it's really, really big. The generation of today is really lucky compared to when I got into it, where because it was really small at that point in time. Now a lot of people are aware of how important PR is, how important social media is, how important this entire industry is. You can branch out into whatever you want to do. Like, who would have thought that ESG would be a big part of a marketing department's initiatives, KPIs to meet, right? But it is.
Where do you see the PR landscape in Malaysia 5 years from now?
That's a tough question. You see, the thing is that I can't even tell you where it's going to be 1 year from now. The generation of today, right? the changes happen at such a rapid pace. It's really not like when I was growing up. Like, I tell all my younger colleagues this all the time, and they're like, "Oh God, he's going to go tell one of his old stories," because they just don't get it. I'm from the generation where it was this. I know analog and I know digital. I was at the middle, so I understand both. Like, I look at my nephews and my nieces, right? They're like 13, 14 years old, and when they saw the phone where you have to dial, have y'all seen that phone before?
Yeah,
Have y'all
yeah,
ever
yeah.
used it before?
No.
You haven't had to use it. And my nephew, they saw it like, Aruba Mama, what's this? Like, it's a phone. Huh? Why is it so big and bulky? Like, how do I use it? But that's exactly what it is. So, similarly, right, with the PR industry, things move so fast today. I can't tell you what's going to happen 5 years from now, but I can tell you maybe in a year, 2 years, ESG is going to be a really big thing for the marketing industry to tackle. I mean, they're already doing it, but I think it's just going to take on a complete life of its own. The one thing about today's generation is that you guys are the generation of change. I know a lot of people go, oh my God, the Gen Zs, they're such snowflakes, they're such... But for me, it's like, I'm so appreciative of this generation because they are the ones that are actually walking the walk. Yeah, they are a little bit more sensitive, but I think that's a good thing. Irritating sometimes, I'm not going to lie, okay? But moving back to the question, I can't tell you what's going to happen 5 years, but you should be able to tell me where you think it's going to go a year from now, or even 5 years from now. Right? There
That's
you
right,
go.
that's right. What skills do we need for a PR students like us to be aspired like PR practitioners like you
Okay.
guys?
Number one, communication. This is a communication industry,
Yeah,
right? So you
true.
need to be able to communicate with people, understand. Communication is not just about, I'm going to tell you something. No, it's about understanding how they feel, understanding how they're going to react, consumer behavior, essentially. That's number one. Number two, writing. All right. Specifically for PR, you need to be able to write. You tell me when you go on your social media platforms, it's all about content,
Content, yeah.
isn't it? And content, it's not just when there's content, it means there's either a script that has been written or people are saying something. It's stuff that has been written because unless you have someone who is like completely going off the cuff, it is very important to have something written so you know what you're going to say. Now, when you're dealing with the press, for example, like you cannot send them a badly written press release. You need to send them something that's good. One thing I've noticed about the generation of today, writing skills are something that has really, really taken a backseat. It's terrible. And I hope my juniors don't listen to this because if they're like, oh, you think I'm a bad writer? Yes, you are. But the fact is, and I don't fully blame you guys as well because everything that you do is very short, very fast. Right? But
Yeah.
long form content is just as important. Like, if you guys are going to write your assignment, imagine if you were marking an assignment. If it's badly written, wouldn't it piss you off?
Definitely would.
Yeah. What the hell is this?
Yeah.
Right? You get
Yeah.
really irritated. And you cannot send out bad quality stuff to the press because then they're going to feel that it's bad work, which reflects on you, it reflects on your company, it reflects on your client. So you need to be able to write well. Writing for PR are like your press releases and your bylines and everything, that's fine. Imagine if you drive along the federal highway and you see a billboard and you see a grammatical error. Would you trust it?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either because I'm like, oh my God, you spent so much money and you can't copy check.
Yeah.
Immediately I get put off by it and I don't want to buy.
True, true.
And it's not just for the English language, even for BM. My BM isn't the best, but I know that you don't say berbagai-bagai, you say pelbagai, right? And I saw something else, it said berbagai. I'm like, huh? Like, I remember that's not the term that you're supposed to use. There's a difference as to when you're supposed to use these terms, and I've seen mistakes. I see these mistakes, I get frustrated, and immediately I think if that particular brand doesn't care about language, I don't want to buy anything from you because I care about language.
Last question for you. Do you have employment advice for public relations students who are graduating soon? What kind of skills will increase student employability?
When I interview potential candidates to join the agency, the first thing I look at is that they are confident. It's very important. You don't have to be loud to be confident. You can be quiet and confident as well. Confident in your own abilities. Make sure before you go in for any interview, you do your research. I can't tell you how important this is. I get so many people who send in their resumes. Oh, I've seen your company and it looks really great. Like I would like to join your esteemed organization. Okay, why is it esteemed? tell me two of our clients that we work on and they can't answer, I still give them opportunities lah, right? But it irritates me. It immediately makes me think, you've not done your research. If you're not doing your research about your own career, I'm going to already not trust you to do the work right for the client. You have to be fluent in something, all right? Either English, BM, or Mandarin. If you're not, how am I going to trust you to not make mistakes? Like, I'm not saying you have to come to the agency and be the best English speaker. No, you can be the best BM speaker because there's still a need for everybody who speaks a different language. The social content, make sure you're creative. And if you lack creativity, because not everybody is creative, right? Make sure your analytical side of things is really good. Because not everyone is right and left brain engaged. Some people are better at one than the other.
True,
right?
true.
Like, I know, for example, like, I'm really bad at the little details, but I'm great at the big picture. So I work really well with people who can do the nitty-gritty, who can see all these small things, and it can get frustrating for them. Someone working with someone like me, like, oh my god, why is he not meticulous? It is messy for me, it works for me, it doesn't work for everybody. So you also need to be able to work with different personalities.
Right.
All right, you cannot go in there thinking, I know everything, I'm the best. You'll always find someone better. Always know what your strengths are. One thing I know I'm good at, and it's probably going to sound really arrogant, right? I know I'm good at talking, right? And I know I can make friends easily. It is just, I'm just like that. I've always been because I'm cute. Right? But I can also be really irritating, and I know when I'm getting into that line, so I stop. There's no harm and there's no shame in admitting what you're good at, what you're bad at. If someone tells me, okay, Reuben, I want you to go inside there and start being super serious and everything, I get very, very uncomfortable because I'm not the super serious person. I've always been the class clown. But that's what wins people over to me, right?
True,
And if that's what works for you, use that in your workspace. Don't dim that. Let that shine through because you'll be surprised at how far it can take you. Be yourselves. Essentially.
Well, that's a great message to our future graduate PR
I
students.
hope so.
Thank you so much for being here and for your time.
Of
so
course.
This is our end for our podcast for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.